All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today, we will be talking about the spring game. It's coming up this weekend. I'm sure there's a lot of things to be excited about. We're going to talk about what we're looking forward to watching. You know, what the offense, the defense, young guys, older guys, what we expect, and maybe what this spring game is going to project into the fall. Before we get into everything, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, follow us on social media. Everything is linked down below. If you prefer audio, make sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating there because it helps us out a ton. All right. Spring game this weekend, Saturday. It's going to be on ESPN Plus for anyone that can't make it to the game, like myself, who is many states away from the beautiful state of Oklahoma and Norman, Oklahoma, more specifically. You can catch it on there. So get an ESPN Plus subscription, bum off someone that you know just to watch the spring game. That's basically the only
Comment
reason
here.
I
We
have
might
it.
text you ours.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, just leave a comment. We'll help you get logged into something if you need it. But it is basically going to be a preview to see what Oklahoma's cooking up for the first season in the SEC, the 2024 season, however you want to refer to this upcoming fall. Brandon, I'll kick it over to you. Let's start with the offense. What are you looking forward to watching in the spring game? Are you going to be there in person? I can't remember if we talked
Yeah,
about this.
yeah, I'm going. But so I think the obvious answer is Jackson Arnold. Dude's started one whole game, one and a half. He got the second half started against BYU. Made some pretty good plays in that Arizona bowl game. You know, some mistakes that you would expect out of a young quarterback. You want to see how he progressed. I think that's the easy, obvious answer that everybody's going to be really excited to look forward to. I want to see Mike Hawkins play because people have been raving about him. And then, but I think for me, like what I'm really gonna be looking for, and it's not really a true test of it because it is a spring game, but I want to see how that offensive line looks because you are replacing the entire offensive line. You got 5 new starters there. Obviously, there's no quarterback sacks in a spring game, so the quarterbacks will be okay. But I want to see if that line is going to hold up, how it looks. That's what I'm going to be watching the most, I think, offensively.
Well, and what's going to be interesting, because we got to remember in the spring game, we're not going to see the whole group of starters play together. We'll see parts of it together. We'll probably Jackson Arnold and one or two of his starting receivers, one or two of his starting offensive linemen. Hopefully, we see that unit together at least on the offensive line. But I agree. I think outside of Jackson Arnold, you look at the offensive line, see how those guys are progressing through the spring. Honestly, I know I can't remember which insider posted a video of it, but people were freaking out about Jake Taylor getting bull rushed by Woody Washington. And every rep, there's going to be a winner and a loser. And there's also the rep of Peyton Bowen that OU football tweeted out. Jackson Arnold threw that football. Like, unless you're ready to freak out about him throwing picks every other throw, like in every single position, there's going to be a winner and a loser. Or sorry, every single rep, there's a winner and a loser. You just, when it comes to real football, you got to make sure that you win more than you lose. That's sports. In the spring game, I'm looking forward to, on the offensive side, the rotation of the wide receivers. Who are going to be the guys that are performing most. I think regardless of what side of the football they're or what color they're playing for, you'll see the guys that are going to shine the most next season. Deion Burks, probably someone that to look forward to just because we've never seen him in this in Crimson and Cream. We've never seen him play for Oklahoma, but got a guy coming out of the transfer portal that was highly touted once he entered. Nick Anderson. We all expect him to potentially be the wide receiver 1 after the season he had last year. Can he keep it up? Is he progressing? And then the tight ends, really, a lot has been made up of Bauer Sharp. Is Devon Mitchell going to get any run time? I think this is really the time. Maybe not so if you see him in a possibility to get the starter spot or even the backup position, but will he get to play at all? Because if he doesn't really get much playing time, then going to the fall, you shouldn't expect him to play at all, if any. He might just be a guy that gets redshirted because, like Brandon likes to point out often, when we talk about the tight end position and who we think is starting. He is technically supposed to be a senior in high school, going into like he's still a junior in high school based off when he was supposed to graduate. He
Yeah.
is a year and a half early into college. So his body, while it is bigger than most his age, might not be quite ready. And I like to think that he'd be a starter, but that may not be realistic. And that's something to watch out for. Who's going to be playing the tight end spot? Because a tweet that was put out by our Twitter account, our guy Brum, who's handling that stuff now, that he has to be a little bit more hands off with the video part. That is a miss, and Nate Roberts that we didn't get in the 2025 class, and some people were not fans of him calling that a miss, but it really, in my opinion, it really is because you don't have the depth past Devon Mitchell yet, and you can find it, but Nate Roberts was one you'd like to have.
Well, you landed Jake Roberts, right? His brother. He's
Mm-hmm.
he's a transfer commit that we've got. So, yeah, I don't expect Devon Mitchell. I think it will be fun to see him in the spring game if he, in the reps that he does get, because he will get some. The kid's going to be a stud, but yeah, he's a baby. It's going to be the Bauer Sharp show. I'd expect to see some Jake Roberts. I think Deon Burks was a fun name to mention because that's a guy that should have a great season too. I mean, he was killing at Purdue. I think he'll carry that over at the slide here for us. I imagine he takes the Drake Stoops role and kind of plays in that area. I wish Andrell were healthy. I don't think he'll be playing in the spring game. He tore his ACL in that Texas game, so I don't know. He might be out, but yeah, that the whole receiving core in general is going to be fun because I've said it a couple times on the show before. I think going into this season, if the offensive line can hold up, I think it's the most talented receiving core we've had since the Baker Mayfield days. With that crew of CeeDee Lamb and Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews, like that team was ridiculous. I'm not saying it's that good, but it's the best since then, I think.
It's definitely up there. And then position we haven't mentioned yet, the running backs. And going into this and probably into the fall, we all expect Gavin Sawchuk to be the RB1 for this team. But someone that we didn't see much last season, but we saw a lot of when he was a true freshman, was Javonte Barnes. Last year he was dealing with some injuries. Now he's healthy or healthier at the very least. I believe he's 100%. Yeah, is he going to be the RB2? Is it going to be like a Mixon Pirine mix where, Sawchuk takes the Mixon role and Javonte takes the Pirine role and you kind of did that 1-2 punch, or is it going to be Sam Franklin, the transfer out of UTSA, I believe? Yeah. I mean, that's a deep position. Caleb Hicks has been someone that's been getting a lot of hype over the spring training portion of football. Then you look at the freshmen. I mean, you don't have Taylor Tatum yet. No, because he's playing high school baseball still, so he won't be enrolled until the summer. But you have Xavier Robinson. Is he going to be someone that gets any play time? I mean, there's a lot of talent in that running back room that we're not quite sure who's going to get that. I guess really the second position, because we all expect Gavin Sawchuk to be RB1.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would be cool if it was Barnes. I mean, we saw them in that Florida State Cheez-It Bowl, and that 1-2 punch that they showed there was strong. It was really good. Sam Franklin is a 1,000-yard back though at UTSA. He's going to be a guy who's going to be pushing for a lot of time too. It's a deep running back room. So I think, I mean, I would imagine that there's a battle going on for that number 2 spot, and I think the spring game will be kind of a way for us to tell, if it's a lot of Franklin and Barnes snaps, so then we'll kind of know that they are kind of duking it out for that number 2 spot. I don't expect Xavier Robinson to be a guy that is competing for serious playing time yet. Will be fun to see him, but yeah, I think it's going to come down to Franklin and Barnes for that 2 spot, and it'll be interesting to see how many reps they each get.
For sure, and it could be. Because when we're talking about it right now, but we don't have Taylor Tatum quite yet. And I think that's really the guy that kind of rounds out the competitiveness of that room. So you have Javonte, Gavin, Sam, Caleb, Xavier. You look at that room, you see potential in Javante. I think you see a lot of potential in him because of what he could do, what he did his true freshman year. His potential in the two younger guys in Xavier and Caleb, but you don't have a ton of experience outside of Gavin and Sam, and even so with Sam coming from UTSA as a transfer, we saw how the Tawi Walker experience went. So a guy that was productive but didn't get much opportunity. Maybe that's his position. If the coaches don't like the depth, they go after a running back in the transfer portal because the spring transfer portal did open, uh, this week. Is it a spot where they look at and like, okay, we need someone that's going to come in 1 year, just really need the depth because after this year, then you do have that opportunity if Javante sticks around for one more year, if Gavin sticks around for another year, if assuming Caleb doesn't leave, you would have Xavier, Taylor Tatum, and then the backs from this 2025 running back group. It'll be maybe a little bit more sure of depth next year versus this year and what they would like to see.
Yeah, no, it's a fun group. Fun to see it break it down.
Yep. And quarterbacks, Jackson Arnold. But honestly, I'd love to see who is the quarterback for the opposing team because
we hope it's Hawkins, right?
Yeah. Well, from the talks you hear about the spring practices, you assume it's Hawkins, but they brought in Casey Thompson to be the number 2 guy with experience. So is that experience going to put him ahead and being the backup, or is Mike Hawkins impressing so much that he's really pushing this quarterback room to jump up to the next level, and Jackson Arnold more specifically to be at his best at all times? Because Mike Hawkins can come in and make some noise. I don't think he's taking Jackson Arnold's spot, but he would be putting a lot of pressure on making sure that Jackson doesn't make too many mistakes because as we've seen in the not too distant past, fans are quick to move on if you don't perform up to the expectation.
Yeah, which by the way, we were not even huge fans of. We were Spencer guys on this show. I think all 3 of us actually.
Yeah.
Whether you were a Spencer or Caleb guy, the way that OU handled that situation, booing Spencer out off the field, pretty much chanting "We want Caleb," that was not the way to handle that. But that's whatever. As far as the number 2 spot, I think it's a fun conversation. I think, if the reports on Mike Hawkins that we're reading, he's lighting it up. I'm sure he is, and all that's fine. I don't see realistically that there's a way that he will end up being the number 2. Because, I mean, a guy like Casey Thompson transfers in 5th or 6th year senior. I mean, the dude's been in college forever, it feels like.
10-year senior.
Yeah, he's been there since we were in high school, it feels like. But I feel like when you have a guy with that much experience, he's been around, done the thing. I feel like he's got the number 2 spot locked in. But I mean, it will be fun to see Mike Hawkins sling it at the spring game.
I would love it to be Mike Hawkins because I don't think Casey Thompson's really that guy if something were to happen to Jackson. But I think you're right. Like,
I kind of agree with you on Casey Thompson. I've never thought he was that great or anything, but now I'm a fan. But like the one good game Casey Thompson has that I can remember, the one game where he like lit it up, happened to be against Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. He had a hell of a day. He lost, but he put up some numbers.
But he lost.
He lost.
That's a stat that matters at the end of the day for him.
Wins loss is not a quarterback stat.
That's it. That's a debate for a different day. But let's move on to the other side of the ball for this spring game, defense. A defense that last year did improve. It went from being one of the worst in all of college football to kind of middle of the pack. They're really good in some areas, really bad in some areas. They led the Big 12 and were top 5 in the country in turnover margin. This defensive back room, while they did struggle in the amount of yards they gave up, they did lead. They were one of the best in the country at creating turnovers and shifting that momentum to help the offense a little bit. And you can make the argument that the offense didn't help or that the defense didn't put the offense in a good position. Whatever it may be, the defensive backs did their jobs when it came to creating the turnovers. The team was also one of the best in tackles for loss. And they got off to a hot start, definitely mellowed out there towards the middle and end of the year, but they were really good something that you expect this defense gets better at. But they were not good at rushing the passer, getting to the quarterback and actually getting the sack. They had QB pressures, but not a lot of sacks when you look at the totals at the end of the year. And the run game was middle tier at best. So, Brandon, after me saying all of that, do you think this defense can make those jumps to be even a top 50 defense in the country? Realistically, to me, I don't think to say a top 10 defense isn't a realm of possibility because of the youth on this team for that side of the ball. But top 30, you think that's realistic?
I mean, I'd definitely like to see it. You got a new DC in there. I wonder how much say he'll have and the play calling and all that stuff, because I'm pretty sure Brent Venables is going to be heavily involved in that process still. But you've got some guys there. You definitely have a lot of talent. You got Peyton Bowen sliding into a full-time starting role. I know he played a lot last season, but I think this is going to be your first year of being a true blue starter all the way, the whole time. And we've seen what that kid can do all over the field, special teams, defense. He was really, really good when he was out there last year. I think if he can keep that up, I think you got him and Billy Bowman. I kind of like that safety duo almost against anybody in the country. I think they're really, really special. Gentry Williams is a top 20 corner, I think, in this league. If you saw it on Instagram, whatever, they had a little poll. He came in at number 20, but he had a huge season. The defensive line, I mean, I agree. I'd like to see more quarterback sacks instead of just pressures. You have to win the trenches, and that's if you win the trenches, you win the pass game. You win the pass game and the run game. So I'm very excited to see Stone and Jaden Jackson with all the hype they're getting. It's kind of like Mike Hawkins, but I think those two guys are going to play a lot this season. So I'm excited to see how they do up front. And if they're crushing it up front, it's going to create lanes for guys like PJ, for guys like Ethan Downs, for guys like Grayson Halton, whoever's going to be coming off the edge there. It's going to make their whole job easier if they are as good as advertised. And that's something to keep an eye on at the spring game.
Yeah. To get more specific on the defensive line, I think the improvement in the interior of the defensive line, like you're mentioning, should bode well for Oklahoma throughout the season. Because if Jaden Jackson is as advertised, if David Stone is as advertised, those two, even if they're the backups at the interior defensive line position, they're going to be a problem for opposing offenses. Then you have your experience or your veteran guys and DJ Terry there, because he was good last season. Maybe he wasn't. Yeah, maybe he wasn't Aaron Donald, but to have that expectation of anyone is unrealistic. He was a good defensive tackle. And Isaiah Cope played well. Obviously, he's not going to be on this team this year, but you've got guys that have experience coming in. Grayson Halton's been getting some hype going in throughout the spring. So a guy that has been there since day one with Brent Venables might get his opportunity to be a starter for this defensive line group. Like you said, opens when you have that, and when defenses fear that interior, they don't have the ability to.
If they've got to put two guys on your guys up front, yeah, and it's a one-on-one matchup out there. And I think, PJ is a guy who has to take a big jump in order for this defense to be where it needs to be successful. I mean, PJ is a guy that has all the skill in the world. He played a little bit last year as a freshman, never as a true starter or whatever, but. He was in the backfield sometimes. He needs to take a big jump and kind of create that stuff for us. Linebackers, I think you're going to get. I mean, you know what you're getting out of Danny Stutzman. Jaron Kanek, man, he's a guy that sometimes he's really good, sometimes he's really not very good. I saw him get pulled off the field last year a couple times. So, I feel like with Stutz, even his first year as a starter, he was kind of the same way. He was a little bit inconsistent, and last year he kind of nailed it in. I think guys like Jaron Kanek, PJ Adebore have to be making huge leaps this season.
Agreed. Yeah, and to shift to the linebackers, I personally believe Jaron Kanek will take that leap to similar to Danny Stutzman, like you alluded to. That first year with Danny in this defensive scheme, not good. And I remember people at the end of the year saying that he was overrated. He did lead the Big 12 in tackles in that first year of him being in Brent Venables' system. He wasn't a bad linebacker, but he wasn't to the same level year one as he was in year two in this Brent Venables system. Now he's going to be his third year in this system, the leader of the defense, the leader of the linebackers. And I think Jaron Kanak can make that kind of jump. You also have more competition in that linebacker room
Hey, he's
versus
gonna
to
have
when
to.
Danny started.
Kip Lewis is a guy, man. When he came in last year, it seems like his hair was on fire. I mean, I think his first the first play at least that comes to mind for me for like when Kip Lewis made his mark is that goal line stand against Texas. He was second or third and goal. I can't remember the situation, but he was the guy who blew it up, who made it happen. And it seems like from there, he really became the guy. He filled in for Stutz when he missed the Oklahoma State game, had a pretty good game. Again, I think Danny Stutzman's going to be Danny Stutzman. He's going to do what he needs to do. You're not really worried there. But if Kanak isn't playing like he should, I mean, Kip Lewis is right there. And then that's a guy that I wouldn't want behind me. If you're messing up, that guy's not.
Yeah, agreed. Then if you think outside of Kip, you have Kobe McKenzie, who was in that same recruiting class in 2022, a guy that was committed to Lincoln Riley, then decommitted and went to Texas, and then almost immediately flipped back to Oklahoma because he bought into this Brent Venables regime once Brent Venables was hired. And then looking at the 2023 class, Lewis Carter, Samuel Masigo. Last year, you pulled in James Nesta. I mean, this linebacker group is getting better. And on the defensive line, we didn't even mention the transfer in Caden Woolard, who from Miami of Ohio, guy that coming out of the transfer portal. We expect to be a contributor. How much he contributes, I think, is dependent on a guy like PJ, if he makes that big jump, because Ethan Downs might be a guy that has a more secure spot as if he's not a starter, a heavy rotational guy in this defense. And then
Trace
again,
Ford
going back
still
to
there?
is who?
Is Trace Ford still there?
Trace Ford is still there. So like there's plenty of depth at that edge spot where it's really going to be who's going to make the big leap going into the 2024 season. Then defensive backs, I agree with you on Gentry Williams and what you said earlier. If anything, I genuinely believe he is a top 10, if not higher, in the conference
really
at defensive back. If he can just stay healthy, man, for 10 out of 12 games, he will show that he is one of the best defensive backs and may even get that opportunity to be going to the NFL. And forgo his senior season. I hope he doesn't, because just as selfishly as an Oklahoma fan, I think he's that good to help to shore up the defensive backs. But you bring back Woody Washington, you bring back Billy Bowman, you have Robert Spears Jennings there. I can take that spot on to the side, on opposite side of Billy Bowman. Yeah, Peyton Bowen, a guy that was highly touted out of high school. So we saw him make plenty of plays last year, was dealing with some injuries, but healthy going into this year, healthy in the spring. A lot of opportunities there, a lot of really good defensive back play. It's really just who are we going to see in the spring game? Who are we going to see play together? Because if anything, we're just going to, I think in the spring game, you'll see the things to take away from or who's going to get the most playing time in the fall. You'll see them a little bit more than you will the rotational guys. I expect to see a lot more Jackson Arnold than I do Mike Hawkins or Casey Thompson. I expect to see more Gavin Sawchuk than Javante Barnes or Sam Franklin or whoever the RB2 is going to be. You know what I mean? So for the defensive backs, the same. Probably, I assume starting safeties are going to be Billy Bowman and Robert Spears Jennings.
Okay.
But I know some people might think it's Peyton Bowen and Billy Bowman.
So in that
I don't
scenario,
think there's a wrong answer there.
So in that scenario, I mean, I agree. I think RSJ, I mean, he looked really good last year too when he was playing. So if that works out, Peyton Bowen's going to go back to a similar role that he had last year, I would imagine. He's going to be a guy who just kind of rotates in a lot and is on the field. I mean, I don't know. I think either way, having Peyton Bowen as a guy who rotates in or RSJ as a guy who rotates in, I think you got two really good guys there doing that. In the defensive backroom, what I'm looking forward to seeing is you've got your guys who are solidified, who are no doubt solidified. Gentry Williams, one of them. I think Woody Washington is the guy who's going to start, and then you got Billy Bowman. Those three are you pencil them in. It's over. They are your starters. I want to see guys who played a little bit last year, guys like Jacoby Johnson, Josiah Wagner, Dejan Malone, the transfer out of San Diego State. Where do they fit into this mix here? I really want to see how how much they get to play, because I agree with you. I think the spring game is telling. If they're playing a lot in the spring game, it means something. I think they're probably going to be guys who are heavily relied on during the season. But I think those three guys specifically, Jacoby and Josiah played a little bit last year and made some plays. Dejan Malone is a guy that you got transfer over to you and probably have high hopes for. Where do they fit into this mix?
Yeah, and so did a guy like Makari Vickers. I mean, he was the one that made a big play there in the Bedlam game that was called defensive PI. That I think a lot of people would agree should not have been called as it was called, but it was at the end of the day.
I think there's a play in the end zone later in the game that may have been
Revisionist history, right? I mean, that's kind of what we got to chalk that one up to. But he made a play. I think when you look back at it, regardless of what the referee decided to call, he did make a big play when he needed to, and the ref just boned him with a bad call in our opinion. But there's plenty of defensive back talent, and like you said, who's going to get more opportunity, because you also have the transfer in Des Malone that is also highly touted out of the transfer portal. I think that's a guy that if Gentry ends up having a lot of injury issues again, could be taking that number 2 cornerback spot out wide, because I think Kendall Dolby, if anyone's going to have a more secured spot than Woody Washington or Billy Bowman in the defensive back room, it's Kendall Dolby. He proved last year. He improved. Yeah, he improved throughout the year. He was a guy like CJ. What the hell was CJ Nixon? I feel like I got that last name wrong, but no, CJ Colden. Yeah, so yeah, Colden from 2020. Right? Yeah, that once he got his opportunity to play was really good. Kendall just has the opportunity to extend his career at Oklahoma. He improved every game he played last year. And Brent Venables has said it himself in press conferences. The thing with Kendall wasn't that he has bad instincts or is a bad football player. He just needed to feel comfortable in what he was doing. He needed to know the scheme and where he needed to be so that his instincts could just kick in and take over for him. Year 2. He should know this defense. He should know the expectations of where he needs to be. He should know the expectations of what he needs to do with what the coaches expect, where his teammates, maybe their weaknesses, and where he should be to make up for him, and vice versa. I expect Kendall Dolby to have a big year for this defense, whether it's at the slot, as a cheetah, as a corner, wherever he's placed. That guy is going to be important for Oklahoma's success.
Yeah, I mean that slot corner spot's one of the most important in football, especially in today's football where everybody seems to spread it out and throw it around. So I mean it's huge, and I agree with you. I think Kendall Dolby's a guy that is going to take a big leap.
Yep. All right. Well, that's everything I've got. Do you have anything you want to add, or do you want to just go to your end of video?
I think another refreshing thing to see at the spring game is a kicker making kicks.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that, but that was last season, man, with Schmidt. It seemed like no matter the kick, no matter the distance, we were always holding our breath, crossing our fingers, praying to whoever we pray to that Schmidt would make it. Because I mean, the dude missed some chip shots last year. He missed, some kicks within 25 yards. It felt like. So hopefully we can see some kicks going in.
100% with you there. Those are going to be important in the SEC, and they're important in football and important football games. But every game is going to be important in the SEC, especially with the 12 game playoff. You don't want to be the one not included in that, coming from this powerful conference. So let us know what you think. Was that your end of video?
Pretty much. Kicks are just, it's the spring game. Who are you most looking forward to seeing? I think everybody's obvious answer is J.A. He's QB1, year 1 full time. But I guess outside of Jackson Arnold, what are you looking for? We kind of talked about a lot of things that we're looking forward to, whether it's the offensive line, the receiving core, the tight end room, the running back room. There's a lot of competition, it seems, on this team. So I guess outside of Jackson Arnold, I'm not letting anybody say Jackson Arnold because that's too easy. What are you most looking forward to seeing?
All right. Hit the comment section. Let us know what you think. Help us out with that end of participating in the end of video. challenge. Like the video, smash the like button. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on the notification bell. Follow us on all social media. And if you prefer audio, if you're not already listening to this and you are someone that would much rather listen to this kind of stuff in the car or on road trips, when you're working, what have you, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whichever you prefer. Leave us a review. Help us out. We appreciate you all for watching and listening, and we will see you next time.